So I just got back a couple days ago, took a couple days to rest up, and as you can see, back in Massachusetts, ready to get working on Arabella again. So Steve has been working on the last oak plank. It's been giving us a little bit of a hard time, but today we're going to wrestle it on the boat and get ready for Lou, who is coming tomorrow. So Lou Sauzedde from Tips from a Shipwright should be here tomorrow to teach us a little bit about how to plank. So we're going to try to get a bunch of things done today so that we can prepare for that, and hopefully that's a good day. This is the last oak plank that Steve was working on in the last week's episode. All of the hard work was already done for this, so getting it onto the boat went pretty quickly. We also don't want it to go without saying that this episode was recorded before we started being much more careful around the boathouse in regards to the coronavirus. There will be a couple of visitors this week in the video, but just know that at the boathouse, we are trying our very best to keep ourselves, our families, and our community as safe as possible. We hope that you are doing the same.
All right, we're going to pull it up tight, right, and get just barely above that nail that you can see from there, like that.
So the shear's unsprung right now. It needs to get tucked in a little bit.
So
higher,
what would happen
so
then?
It'd probably go up to like 20, 21.
Oh,
It
yeah.
wouldn't hit 22, that's for sure.
That's the way most boats lay out. The planks up forward, they look better if the planks are forward just a touch narrower than aft. That's the way this would work out right now. But at 24 inches, well, wait a minute.
Okay, Lou, so if I'm understanding this correctly.
It's 10, yeah, you got 10 planks here. 5 times 5, 25. Yeah, okay, there's 10 planks in between. So how would this measure up at 10? See,
What's the difference between the line of the tuck and the magic line? Because I've read in the
well,
book
the magic
something
line
about.
is usually above the tuck. It's under the counter. The magic line will run out under the counter, and then your curve into into your stern post is right in here. That's the tuck, right? So you're trying to gain ground in the tuck. You don't want to have little tiny planks going in there. Basically, yeah, because you got another measurement. You're trying to make up ground to get to where this is. So that's what you have to do. You get a really nice batten about that wide, right? Nail it on that middle nail, and then pull it downhill until it's like this from the ends, not really the middle. Have somebody hold it in the middle so the thing makes a nice sweep. You know what I mean? And maybe even push it up in the middle, because over that distance it's adjustable. It doesn't have to be perfect, you know what I mean? But it's nice if it is. So then you're going to come down in here and like that, However much you have to edge set that batten, that's how much you get to edge set planks. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot, you know what I'm saying? That's why, you see, if this was all different than this, say that middle was way down more, right? So then you put you'd put more planks on it to the magic line. And the magic line would start running out a little bit different, right, in here, right? But what happens is when you got near that area, there'd be edge set in it. It doesn't have any like that, with that there, so.
We spent 7 hours talking about boat building and planking and different methods. And I'm going to do my best to distill 7 hours of talking and meeting and discussing with Lou down to, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 minutes here. We'll see if I can do it. So what Lou is saying is he would have gone about planking this boat very differently. And one of the big takeaways from our conversation with Lou was he was very concerned with how easy it is to plank a boat and how fast it is to plank a boat. And when you're making your living as a professional shipwright planking boats, it makes a lot of sense to be really, really concerned about how fast and how easy you can do it. Because, right, that's how much you have to charge for the job and how much money you can make. Now, we're in a little bit of a different category. So if things take us a little bit more time, we're not quite as concerned about it. But things being easy to do and going efficiently is absolutely, a concern. Just probably not as big of a concern for us as it is for Lou. So I'm going to try here to explain how Lou would go about doing this from scratch. I'm going to try to do that on the model here. I think it's going to be a lot easier than trying to show the whole hull, and you can't really see it all at once. So if you go to the model here, and who would have known this would have become so handy? The first thing that Lou is talking about doing is finding what he calls the magic line. And how Lou goes about doing this is he takes a string, in this case we're going to use a little elastic, and he bends it around the boat. And you can see it makes kind of a big arc. And what that string is finding is where it really wants to lay on the hull. And as Lou explains it, if you were to wrap a flat board around the boat, to make that twist, it would start to curve up. And that magic line is the line that a straight plank bent onto the hull would want to make. And this magic line is going to be different depending on the shape of your boat and whether you have a transom or double ender or what. And one of our issues with this method and Arabella, so we can get this to kind of lay there, is that this gives us a lot of room that we need to fill midship, a lot of room in the bottom stem and stern, and not much room at the top. So when we found the magic line on Arabella, if we were to put on planks that were, say, 6 inches wide at midship, they would end up being unreasonably narrow, like 1.5 inches at stem and stern. So we can't follow the true magic line. But by following the magic line as close as we can, we start to reduce the edge set in the planking. And the edge set is what we've been fighting a bit with these oak planks. So as we bend these oak planks onto the boat, we've been putting the straps around them and we've been pulling them down, which has been working fairly well. The only issue is as we go higher up the hull, we're having to edge set more and more and more. And at some point that will likely go away as we start to kind of transition up towards the shape of the shear. But for now, we're having to put a good bit of edge setting into it. Doing that with the oak, I'm not terribly concerned about. Oak is very hard, this is very tough. It's not totally seasoned, so it's still a little bit pliable. And the oak that we're using has virtually no defects in it. The graving pieces are really small. And I can't say quite the same for the cedar. Cedar's also just not going to like edge setting as much as the oak would. So we definitely want to edge set less with the cedar when we start to put that on. Another thing that we have to consider here is we have some real twist in the stern. So if we take this flat piece of plywood here and we put it on and we follow our line, we can see that here we're going to have to start to twist. And the more twist we have to put into it, the harder it is on that timber. And that's why we had to steam these last couple planks. So by finding the magic line, what Lou does is he essentially finds the path of least resistance for the planks. So instead of putting the planks directly fore and aft like this, and you can see how much twist we have to deal with, what Lou would do is put the plank on like this. And you can see how there's virtually no twist. We almost completely eliminate that. And this is, if you were to extrapolate it up, kind of is in line with Lou's magic line. So he would have put a really short, fat garboard here and laid in more planks and basically built up the stern. And by doing that, it's called putting in steelers. And it's a very common thing to do. So when Lou got up to here, his planks would be looking something more like this, and they wouldn't have as much of that twist to deal with. So his real strong recommendation to us was to fit in a steeler or 2 or even 3 if necessary here, and put on a couple planks, at least one that narrows a bit in midship and flares a bit in the stem. And what that'll do is right now our planks are flat and they kind of dive a little bit at the stem and stern, and this will make them rise a little bit. And that'll give us a couple advantages. One of those advantages is that we're going to eliminate a lot of the twist. We're not going to have to force that cedar into the twist, but the cedar is not going to do as well as the oak did. And another thing that that does is it makes all of our planks up here diminish more. So they'll be wider at midship and narrower in the stern. And the narrower the plank is, the easier it is to edge set, and the easier it is to put the twist in. So our tentative plan is to put in a steeler, maybe two, that goes something like that. And that'll get us out of that twist, and it'll reduce a ton of the edge setting with the cedar, and I think it'll be really advantageous. And we are going to do this steeler out of oak. So we thought we were done with the last of the oak planks until Lou showed up. But it'll be a really short plank, and the nice thing with the oak is it steams really well. So even though there is some pretty radical twist in here, we can put in the oak plank, we can steam it in the bag, and it'll bend in there without much of an issue. And we also have a real good amount of curve right here, so we have to do a bunch of backing out. So we can put on a very short, somewhat thick oak plank, steam it in here for the twist, do a bunch of backing out so it fits nicely against the frames, and it should set us up for the rest of the cedar to go a bit smoother and a bit easier, which with the planking party less than a week away is really, really important. If we can get it so that the cedar planks go on the boat with less fuss, we'll be able to put them on a lot quicker. And by adding one, maybe two steelers per side here, I think that Lou's right, and that's a great solution.
Well, thanks so much for coming out and showing some of your tips and tricks and what you've learned, because you've certainly been at this a hell of a lot longer than we have.
Well, I've been at it for quite a while, that's for sure. But I'll tell you what, it always makes me feel good to come out to see these jobs, you know. I don't expect everybody to be an incredible expert, but I'm just glad it's going on. You know, I think it's just wonderful that it's going on. And I love the boat. It's a great boat, and look at the wood you put in it and the whole effort you've gone through. Fantastic. I just think it's great.
Cool. Well, thank you so much again, Lou.
Yeah, no problem at all.
It's great to know that if we get into a pinch, we can always give you a ring.
You can.
Absolutely.
And you guys deserve a tremendous amount of credit for what you've done.
Thank you.
Really.
It was great to hear. We're getting ready for the planking party. So we got a few cedar boards here that we had pulled out a little while ago when we were thinking about switching to cedar before we realized we didn't have quite enough. So we're gonna run these through the thickness planer and scarf up a few planks so that when we do the planking party, we've got a few planks to start working with while the scarfing team starts to get in the groove of making planks. So we're gonna get those glued up and probably glue up a few more this week. And most of this week is just getting ready for the planking party. We built some sawhorses with Randy and put some rough guards on the thickness planer, and we're just doing everything we can to get the ducks in a row so that when the crew shows up a week from today, we can make the most of it.
Our copper rivets have been a pretty hot topic amongst a few aircraft engineers that follow us. Mark, who has worked for Boeing for many years, came by and we walked him through how we've been doing this so far.
So I understand now what you're dealing with.
Yeah, it's just a different animal.
It is. It's totally different. Again, I've done boilers and steam engines. I've done boilers for big, huge heating systems. 40 years in aviation. I've riveted a ton of stuff in my career.
Yeah.
I've never riveted copper. I have riveted wood, but I rivet exotics, fiberglass, composite materials, multi-laminated aluminum, fiberglass, all that. And aviation style riveting works all the time.
Yeah.
This, I gotta say, as a 40-year aviation guy, this is a different animal. So all you other aviation guys out there, don't send any more bad emails. This is different. What they're doing, I agree with, is okay. And the first plane that I worked on was a 727. And when that airplane rolled in the hangar, it's gonna be there for 4 weeks. And then I get to watch them start to tear it apart. And then I get involved in watching them tear it apart. And then they say, son, oh, there's Okies out there. Son, you see that piece of aluminum that goes all the way to the top and goes all the way around? That's called the 950 casting. And it's about this wide, and it's probably 12 feet tall. And it holds the wing and the landing gear in. We're going to take that out and we're going to replace it. And I went, you're kidding. Nope. A week later, we had it out. Now, that casting in some places is 2 inches thick. And you're going to take a rivet and you're going to drive it all the way through that hole. Somebody on the other end is going to be with one of these.
Yep.
And you're going to be there with one of these. And you're going to put that rivet in there and you're going to do it 1,000 times. Because there's 1,000 rivets holding that piece of casting. That, nuts and bolts and hardware and all the good stuff to go along with it. 3 weeks later, you got a solid airplane backing out the door. I tell you what, my first year there, I was just like, this is so cool. I don't think people understand what we do. I'm a plumber.
Yep.
I'm a pneumatic specialist. I'm a hydraulic specialist. I'm an electronics specialist. I'm a metal worker specialist. Plus, I changed tires, grease planes, and changed oil and engines too.
I mean,
You know,
you've seen what we've done.
You have to. And basically, you know, there is so much commonality between ships and airplanes.
Yep.
It's got the same stuff in it, and it's kind of built the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're very
Smooth
similar.
and fair
Yeah,
curves
you've
and
got
the-
frames, you've got stringers, you've got skin, you've got a keel. Guess what? One of the big areas in an airplane is the keel beam. They call it the keel beam. It's the center of the airplane that runs along the bottom of the airplane. It's where everything's tied to it. Same thing on a boat.
So for the steeler, we just played with the battens and figured out where we wanted a nice smooth arc so that we don't have to do as much edge setting. And then we just made this very simple plywood pattern that I bent into place here, and bend it in and pull a few measurements and trim a little bit and bend it in so that we accounted for some of that twist, because as it twists it wants to climb. So the bottom edge of this pattern actually has a little bit of a bow into it to help compensate for that. And then I picked up the bevels and cut those with the bevel saw, the exact same way we've been doing that with all of the planks. And then we put this in here and bagged it and steamed it like we've been doing with the oak. So now that that's all set, we'll do the same thing on the other side and we'll be all set to start hanging the cedar. And we've just been trying to really motor through this. We've got a lot to do before the planking party, which is just a couple days away. And we weren't really expecting to put in steelers. That wasn't until Lou came and we talked, and then we took a couple days to play with battens and him and haw over a little bit and decide exactly what we wanted to do. But we do think Lou was right, and adding the steelers should make a big difference. So thanks for stopping by, and thanks for the tip, Lou.
The blade's back there.
Oh, I see it. There it is. Yeah.
So there's,
There you go.
there's four knives in it.
Oh, cool. The round head. That's nice. I'm looking at this. Oh,
That's a
that's a
feed
power
roller.
roller. It's a feed roller. Yeah. This thing's so big, it's throwing me off. I think the reason why most people get rid of this stuff is because they just don't have anything to use it for anymore, really. You know, so then it starts kind of going downhill and getting rusty, and then everybody thinks it's a piece of junk, you know, so they just kind of let it go, you know.